Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m. and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
We are, we're here. We have an amazing guest. We're alive and well, and we're going to have some good conversation. Kelly, what do you think?
I'm always about good conversation with you and our guests and all of our fun things going on, right?
We have so much fun. So before we dive in, we wanted to just give a quick shout out to everyone who's been listening in. We're so grateful that we're having conversations that you're finding interesting and maybe even valuable, hopefully. And we'd love for you to jump over on whatever platform you're listening in on and just tell us what you think, whether it's good or bad. We want to hear. We'd love for you to do that. And
I went onto Apple Podcast. I went on Apple. Oh my gosh! I went onto Apple Podcast. Papple, whatever you rate. And I've noticed that a couple of people have put reviews, and they're like nice words. They're not laughing at us, which is just shocking.
We love it. We're so grateful, and we're so happy to have Michele Ray with us today in studio. So I know, Kelly, this is someone you know quite well. So why don't you let everyone know who Michele is?
Michele, thank you for being here today. I'm having issues with the mic and the video. You guys, we're trying all these new different video formats for social media, and I have this big mic in front of me, and it's just very there. Hi, Michele.
It's there.
Hello, Kelly and Brian.
Thank you so much for being here. Michele, tell everybody about you, because you just can't use a couple words to share the Michele goodness. So the floor is yours.
Oh, Kelly, you are so sweet and supportive. Yeah, my name is Michele Ray, and I am very passionate about this shift that humanity's in right now. We are individually and collectively have a huge opportunity to do things different, to the new possibilities emerging, and I provide coaching, one-on-one coaching. I work with organizations and leaders who really understand we have to do things differently, but we're not really sure what. Like, we're in that liminal space between where we've been and where we're headed, and we're reimagining. I believe I'm calling it the new era, where everybody counts, where the old systems of oppression and greed and power over and entitlement falling away, messy and wild as it is. And I'm really about creating community and building capacity for people interested in co-creating who we are becoming. I've written a book called Living from the Center Within. Center Within is the name of my company. I started over 20 years ago, and it started in that space, the name between wake and sleep, right? The center within. How do we connect to that place of pure potential where all possibilities live, and that space of that 0 point space where we can just live in that calm and connect to our higher self, our on the quantum field, to the morphic field, to each other, to find each other, to have the magic that can happen when we move from surviving in fear right into flourishing and thriving. And I think we're about that change, and I'm delighted to be able to offer the one-on-one coaching, the organizational development. I have some longer classes. I also teach in several colleges at the University of Minnesota, so I'm about wherever there's an opening through the Community for Higher Consciousness I'm involved in, and have my first class, 6-month master class posted on the School for Higher Consciousness. Just recently, we're starting in September. I can't wait. So for me, it's about, at this point in my 60s, been doing this for a really long time, And I'm about the mentoring part, like those of us, those of you, Brian and Kelly in particular at the moment, right? Starting the adventures, jumping in with both feet, creating literally systems that support us as society moving forward. And supporting you and those kinds of endeavors is my heart song.
I told you, everybody, you can't just describe Michele in a couple words. Isn't that just
that's definitely one of the best intros ever.
I have to give her to we can't even ask her what she's curious about because right?
Well, we might not have to ask it that way, but you did mention you started this company about 20 years ago, and I'm not great at math, but seems like there's a lot of life before 20 years ago, or at least some part of life, right? So we do love digging back into like the adventure that has been your life and the different experiences you've had, because the really cool, like kind of the magic of these conversations are there's usually these things that happened in childhood or even early adulthood where there actually begins this curiosity of, that thing that maybe seems out there or that my family would totally disagree with, there's something pulling me towards it. And then life happens and maybe family happens and jobs and all these other things. But ultimately, you do start singing your song, as you put it so beautifully. And so walk us back to maybe share some of those experiences that happened early on where you might have felt like, am I different than everybody else? Or am I weird? Or am I just who I am and I get it and I'm rocking with it?
Dawn Morningstar
tell us some of those stories.
Dawn Morningstar was on, and she told us about how a statue of Mother Mary smiled at her. So
anything is okay.
So go for it.
Thank you both for the invitation. I have the memory of before I came, being in some other dimension, looking at Earth and knowing this was going to be the coolest time to be here and that we were up for a rockin' transformation. And then I arrived and man, this place was really dense and heavy. Like, what was I thinking? So sluttled through the childhood stuff of, being an alien on the planet, as you were saying, Brian. Maybe I'm not actually from here, right? Or maybe none of us are from here, but some of us remember, and that makes it a little tricky. So wandered through childhood, learning to be careful about who I said what to, but also picked up a guitar and learned to sing and played tennis and got out and became independent and was in my 20s before I recognized that not everybody talked to their angels and guide. And for a little while, I thought of it as my guardian angel. Then for a while, it was the BVM, we called her, Blessed Virgin Mary. We chatted with her for a bit. And I don't know, I just always have had access to information flowing from the other side. And my early on experiences was I was here in this dense world where people were mean to each other and lived in fear, or I could go into my fantasy land, or what was more real to me and connect up with my guides and angels and my own intuition. And over time, through study, through prayer, through meditation, through joining community, right? Reading books. I've come to understand through a master's in human development on the process of transformation, for instance, that it's not two, right? We are multidimensional human beings. And now I'm not quite so schizophrenic or bipolar or whatever the experience might have been. I really wasn't diagnosed with those things, but it did feel like there was these aspects of myself that were not very integrated. And that's been the journey, to own all of those aspects of myself and bring it forward, not in silos, but as an integrated human being, and then to be able to offer the path of that as a light worker or a way shower for others walking that path. So yeah, it's been rough. It's been amazing. It's been miraculous, all of the above, but it's taken a commitment and an effort to move past that sense of fragmentation into a place of wholeness. And I would go so far as to say owning our own holiness, our own divine spark being a human? Thanks for asking.
Yeah, that's so many elements in there that I could relate to already in my physical adventure here in this dimension. One piece that I wanted to ask that kind of stood out was you mentioned kind of always having access to the you described angels, kind of ethereal realm. Did you have a physical mentor? Like, was there someone maybe in your early 20s that was doing work here that you were attracted to that, kind of was that first person to reach out a hand and say, "Hey, we are operating on the same plane. We have access to these things, and here's how I navigated through." Was there anyone like that for you?
There were a number. I have had a number of amazing teachers. I had a friend, we were about the same age in our early 30s, that met serendipitously, and I got invited to what I would call a mystery school teaching for the day. And by 11 o'clock in the morning, I was at my friend Sarah Suzanka's house. She's a lovely woman, and the teacher was Barbara Johnson, and the woman in town was Jan Adams, who's a long edge writer and contributor from decades ago. And by about 11 o'clock in the morning, I was so nauseated I could hardly breathe, and got some ginger tea. But the energy in the room was, one, so familiar and such a high frequency. And as an empath, I could barely physically integrate it, kind of attune to it. And that was the beginning of years of study with a variety of people through that community. But I do remember driving home feeling I had found my tribe, and the rest is history, as they say. I've had an opportunity in the Twin Cities, as Kelly knows, to office with Maureen Higgins and Barb Stahl couple 15 years ago as so these local intuitive healer mystics, I call them, psychics, whatever we call ourselves, coach is what I'm calling myself these days, just to continue in this place here in the Twin Cities. And then, of course, now we have access globally to those communities. But definitely feel like I have stood on the shoulders of great leaders and healers and teachers and visionaries. And yes, you can't make sense of it, right, without a mentor. And that's, I think, why coaching appeals to me so much. I can't teach you anything you don't already know, but I can help you discover it and hold space and just normalize it as you go.
Yeah. I I just wanted to share that seeing someone who's at the mastery level, if we put a term on that, that's really in the ability to mentor other great leaders, practitioners. I think back to, maybe a common friend of all of us, certainly if Kelly and I, Catherine Taylor was that person for me back in 2017, 2018. And I was really, really struggling. I mean, now I'm so embedded in this whole world, and I love it. But back then, the idea of the spiritual realm and angels and really digging into that immense part of who I am, I pretty much had no access to. Like, I went through life and I would think of someone and then they'd text me and I'd go, "What? That is so wildly crazy." And I would just kind of push it down. And I'd be like, well, that's just too weird to kind of to go into. And then Catherine was that person for me who reached a hand out and said, "Brian, that's really the most natural part of you, and you should really explore it." And here we are today having conversations with people like you, Michele. And so I just want to honor people like you and Catherine who got to that point in their physical adventure here where they can be someone that reaches out and says, "Hey, this is a safe place for you to come and explore." So maybe are there any kind of recent experiences of you doing that with someone and kind of seeing them come into their singing of life or their true calling, or however you'd like to say it?
I am lucky, Brian, to be able to have the opportunity to support a number of different people who are stepping into their power, learning their authentic self and their essence. And it makes me weep, to be honest, on almost a daily basis, to see the courage it takes for people to step into and really own their individual identity on multiple dimensions that many people don't have access to or aren't curious about. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to find each other, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, that's why we're here today. That's why we're doing this beautiful adventure of being curious with Kelly and Brian. Well, what's kind of funny on that note, we're wrapping up segment 1. We're here with Michele Ray, Center Within, centerwithin.com, transformational coach for individuals, professionals, and organizations. Kelly and Brian, Brian and Kelly, being curious, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. See you in a little bit. And we're back. Normally Brian does that, but I'm doing it today. Hee hee.
You did it so well,
I'm
Kelly.
like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
we're back.
Woo! That was awesome.
Being curious with Kelly and Brian, Brian and Kelly, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Hey, today we're here with Michele Ray, Center Within, centerwithin.com, transformational coaching for individuals, professionals, organizations. And something that she also has on her website is supporting you consciously to create who you are becoming. Oh my gosh, you guys. If that just doesn't go, ooh, 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 I don't know what does.
That just felt like a warm hug for that inner desire, passion. It's like, oh, cool, I can be supported? Sweet. Nice. There's someone out there that knows, that's on the other side of this adventure, that can support the journey. I love that.
Absolutely.
I'm big on words, Michele, so that caught my attention.
Great. Oh,
Very
absolutely.
well said.
Michele is known for holding, well, I'm just making my gut, like, I'm just telling everyone, for holding safe space for people. Like, the way, you can just tell when she walked into the studio today, and I'm just buzzing around getting all the cameras set up, and there was this calmness, there was this flow, there was just this beautiful energy, and I actually leaned over and I said, thank you, and it just felt so lovely. So something that I know it's kind of like a superpower for you, for creating safe space. Tell us, and tell the audience the importance of that safe space, because if you are going to be curious, if you are going to actually make the conscious decision to transform and to have the courage to do it, you have to have a safe space. And that's just, I know I'm rambling, but that's just something really, really, really important for, I think, people to have right now, but also as they make that conscious decision to say, it's time. Sorry, I went all over with that one.
Right.
I got it.
Thanks, Brian.
I know Michele got it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I think my mic is muted, so I'll just add that 2 cents here.
No, we can hear you. You're good.
Great. That's just a message for me. I appreciate the invitation for that, Kelly, because I do believe that when we expand into a fresh new layer of our multidimensional self, it feels fresh, right? We feel vulnerable. We feel unsteady and unsafe. And to have a safe and sacred space, whether it's in a one-on-one session or in a community, we offer, I have a couple of colleagues I work with, and we offer gatherings every month. For instance, we have a power hour for an hour once a month that's free, and we have a 2-hour drop-in that's guided meditation and activation. And to come into that space and to share our experience and to have that sacredness is huge. And another part to that, Kelly, is that we, over time, really do learn to be the one to carry the energy. Right, so I kind of think of David Hawkins' work on power versus force, right? What a frequency we vibrate at, if we can hold steady and carry our weather from the inside out, then the whole room, everyone there can attune to literally that high frequency, and it's in and of itself an activation. It in and of itself helps us integrate. I've had a couple clients over the years that have said, sometimes I just want to come and sit in your presence for an hour. We don't even have to talk. And it's not like me personally from my ego. It's this safe and sacred container. It's almost like a little vortex that we create together that opens and softens. It almost is like the cell membrane. It softens and opens and makes us more porous. So we can experience these more subtle ways of knowing in a way that may feel unfamiliar, but feels safe. And then it becomes more and more familiar, right? And more comfortable. And it just simply becomes who we are. And we don't go back and forth on having access to it and not having access to it. It becomes sustainable in like a different stage of consciousness. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful experience of being human, because it is really scary and can even be terrifying to have sudden access without a safe and sacred space to process it.
This is just coming to me. That's why I'm asking you without giving you this preparation and notes prior to the interview. What are 3 things that people can do during the day that are having that, the curiosity, that they can ground themselves? Because what you do, you automatically do that now. I can see that it's just something that is, it's in your DNA. It's a practice that you've done so many times in a beautiful way that you've owned it. It's a part of your cadence. For even someone like me that is a hummingbird, or someone that's all over, and I have a lot of the tools, but I'm not always doing it. So what are some simple things that we can do, just little bite size on a daily basis, just to get that as a part of our new cadence? I'm sorry I went into total right field on this, but it just feels really, I think there's a lot of people out in the community and listening to this are like, I don't have time for a 2-hour meditation every day. I have no interest in going to yoga. But there's something to be said about some things that I know that are just in your back pocket that you could share, that people could have some aha moments and then relax and then breathe into it and then curious about going deeper.
It's such a great question, Kelly, because I agree with you that the point of meditation is to live in that state, right? So we have to practice to be able to increase the number of minutes a day, right, that we can comfortably have access to that. But here's a little list off the top of my head or in my back pocket. I believe that taking 60 seconds a couple times a day to focus on your breath brings you back into the present moment. And I use breath if I'm sluggish, I'll breathe quicker and deeper and faster. And if I'm overexcited, I will slow it down and do the 4 breaths in and hold it for 4 and 4 breaths out. So even assessing your current condition, that's what I call it, throughout the day, and then applying a practice to bring your attention back to the present moment. So breath work is helpful. I also like progressive relaxation. I can start at my toes, contract them for 3 seconds and release. Do it in my calves, 3 seconds and release. You can do either of these anywhere, in the middle of a meeting, right? In the middle of the park with your kids. Another favorite of mine is to notice my 5 senses. What am I physically seeing right now? What do I smell? What does it feel like to have the temperature of this room on my skin? Is there a taste in my mouth? I had some really good caprese salad for lunch, in case you want to know. Right?
Yay!
What am I hearing? And concentrating on that, bringing my attention in. And you can use these practices, I think of them in 2 ways. One, when I'm already calm, if I do it, if I practice, bring my attention into the present moment, a mindfulness transformative practice, it brings me deeper. So why do we have great ideas in the shower? Right? Because we're already relaxed. Our 5 senses are here. And if we take it that one step more, we open up to that creative, intuitive, synchronistic field that you were talking about earlier, Brian. If we use these tools when we're hyper aroused, right? When we're in an amygdala hijack, when we're on fight and flight, it brings us back to homeostasis and balance. And again, reopens us up to these aspects of ourselves that are always already present. But do we have access? Are we able to notice and perceive them? And that's the muscle that we practice through these small transformative practices throughout the day? Great question, Kelly.
I was practicing them as you were saying that. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah, the thought that I had as you were sharing that is I always want the most people possible to have the best access to all the things that you just said. And so my brain goes to, okay, how do we put that information out there so that the most people get it? And a lot of people I'm like a science person. So for me, it's like, well, if I understood really the benefits of doing those things beyond just intellectually, I'm more likely to do it. And so I was thinking, as I went on a walk yesterday, there were probably 10 moments where it was either like a flower fragrance or someone was cooking. And I took these incredible breaths in, and it was just so... It's pure enjoyment, like real pure enjoyment. And so as you were talking, I was thinking, I wish I knew what was happening scientifically in my body, like the serotonin levels, those types of things that were actually happening that created this almost euphoric state, very open state, very loving state, very joyful state. So that's where my mind went. It's like, how do I express to as many people as possible that by doing the things that you just said, it's not just intellectual words. These are proven activities that will improve your life. So I don't know if you have any of that information, but if you kind of piggyback on what I was saying and kind of ground it, that would be really cool.
I am also a neuroscience quantum physics geek, so I love the intuition.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm your people, Brian.
Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I will point people to, if you really are curious about some very practical science, spirituality, and energy, is to my book, Living from the Center Within, is literally a roadmap to this process of co-creating who we are becoming with access to our most optimal multidimensional self. Because to your point, it physically changes our body chemically. 1,400 chemicals change, from endorphins to oxytocin, right, all the things. Our entire brain structure, neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. We have new connections and literally grow new brain cells. What we focus on grows. So are you growing them in your hindbrain, which is fight and flight and constant vigilance? Or are you growing new brain cells in your neocortex, in the highest functioning, the executive functioning part of your brain? When you can be calm, even if you're triggered, and you can look around and in that moment know that's an old pattern. That stimulus triggers its danger. And in this moment, I can take a breath. I can smell something delicious. I can use my witness, which is what you're talking about, to see the part of me that's reacting, that's conditioned, that I want to recondition and say, in this moment, I am not in danger. And we literally start to rewire our brain, our nervous system, our experiences, so that no longer does that stimulus that at one point did cause harm, let's say, or was unsafe, we can literally unhook it in the amygdala limbic system in our brain and rewire it to say, in this moment, I am alive. And to your point, Brian, one of the telltale signs that I have found delicious with developing this witness consciousness so that I can watch myself from a mirror, non-judgmental perspective, is physically the five senses heighten. And until you have the experience, it's hard to explain how much better food tastes and the lilac bushes smell and someone touching your skin. I mean, it's euphoric. And it becomes a new normal of simply, there's a phrase I like called causeless joy. Right? I can live in that condition as a natural way of being that doesn't require a stimulus to put me there. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, And it's when you can get it multi-sensory, that's where you really, I was, again, as you were talking, I was like, oh, but Brian, remember when you walked by the horses and you stared at each other and it was like, whoa, like I feel so freaking connected to this horse. We're not talking words, but my God, that horse is looking at me. I feel it. I think we got a good connection here. And it was just like, you can't kind of engage in that moment, or at least I find it hard. I'm like doing my job. I'm in Zoom meetings and stuff like that. And I need that. If I'm not going for walks, if I'm not connecting out in nature, Kelly knows I do a lot of barefoot walking and stuff like that. If I don't do that, I mean, I'm like Kelly always does the hummingbird thing. Like her and I are like,
we are.
We really need those practices, as I'm sure most people do.
Well, it's interesting something that you brought up with that. I was in Hawaii, I think 10 years ago, and we were biking down Haleakala, and it was horrible weather, and you basically go at sunrise. You jump in a truck with a whole bunch of strangers. You're driven to the top for sunrise, and they basically give you these landmarks as you are going up. So they're like, you're just going to get on the path, start going down, and when you smell this, take a right, and when you smell this, go here, and when you do this and this. And I'm all fearful, but then I started to smell and hear and feel the landmarks they were telling us about, and then I just went from fearful to, they've got us. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was just beautiful. Oh my goodness, you guys. Wrapping up segment 2, Being Curious with Kelly and Brian and Kelly, AM 950. Progressive Voice of Minnesota, here with Michele Ray, Center Within, and we'll be back. Hey, you guys, we're back. Being Curious, Kelly and Brian and Kelly, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. We are blessed. We are blessed to have Michele Ray in studio today. We've just had beautiful conversations, and we're only scratching the surface, I truly believe. Absolutely. So something we said in between break is something that Brian and I try to do is engage with our guests to make sure that there is an equal energy exchange and that we're definitely providing value to you guys, our audience, but then also for them, for their time, for coming in here. And I, of course, went into business mode of all the checklists of things that we need to accomplish in the next 16 minutes. And Michele, in this lovely way, said, I think we need to talk about the power of storytelling. And I love that in the middle of my little business brain, she wanted to elaborate and continue on the journey of storytelling. So, Michele, tell us about the power of storytelling.
Well, I have so enjoyed, Kelly and Brian, listening to your stories, and I've added a couple. But we can talk about the principles of things, right? It's important to have the information and the wisdom and the compassion. But as a coach in particular, I'm about how does it change how we live, right? How do we sustain this? And I was thinking of two stories. One, on the level of what kind of trauma have we experienced and how it gets wired and how we can rewire it. As a young woman, my first degree is in pharmacy, and I was working as a pharmacist in a little drugstore, in a little community pharmacy, and was held up at gunpoint for narcotics. And rushing in were two men that had either keys or change jingling in their pocket. I realized 6 months later when I was shopping with my two young children who were playing in a clothing rack, and somebody went by with, running by with a jingle in their pocket, and I was nearly paralyzed. I had no idea where it was coming from. And so to go into and lean into those kinds of experience and be curious, just like you're suggesting, and be able to go back, work with it, and unhook from it is so powerful. And then we have the other end of the spectrum, as you were sharing your story, Brian, of connecting with the horse. I had an experience, I wrote a blog about it a couple of years ago in Cabo, Mexico, with a humpback whale. I was talking to neutrinos, asking them to share their wisdom with me. I love merging my awareness with other people and other beings. And out of the ocean right in front of me, this huge humpback whale came straight up and straight down. And I waited a few minutes, didn't see it, said thank you to the universe and the whale, and maybe I was delusional. Start walking the mile back to the resort along the ocean, and she comes up with her baby in between us, and 20 minutes it took me to walk back. We walked, and eye to eye, Brian, I get it. It changed me, and that whale energy lives inside of me. The top of my head is buzzing as I'm sharing this story, right? There was a connection and an understanding of how energy in the morphic field works. She stayed, by the time we got there, 100 people were on the beach, right? And she stayed, fed her baby. Finally, the male humpback came in to closer to shore, was out kind of protecting. It's like, what the heck? Played for a while more. They all three left, and the two adults waved their tails at us and took off. Life-changing experience, right? So I can learn about it and study about it and open to the possibility of it. And when it's that first-person mystical experience, it changes us. And sharing those stories with each other in community empowers and emboldens us to notice them, to share them, to normalize them, and invite other people to share their own. And at the beginning, it might be a little secret, right? I tell you, people in my family, extended family especially, have told me stuff they start with. I never told anyone else about this, but you would get it. And for us to be those people, that's the invitation as we venture into co-creating who we are becoming in this new era.
Well, and I love what you just shared, because I think we all know that one of the ultimate drivers for most humans is to be acknowledged. And what a way to be acknowledged as someone who is a stand for a safe and secure place to share. Right? It's like sometimes we all struggle, like, how do we provide value in the marketplace? How do we provide value in our families and our communities? And it's like, it goes back to one of my early mentors who is still wildly successful in multitude of capacities. And she shared with me, Brian, very early on, I decided I'd go out and try and make 1 million friends. And she goes, people thought that was an insane, ridiculous, even stupid thing to do. And she said, but Brian, that's what I did. And that's probably one of the biggest factors that contributed to where I got to. And I said, well, why reinvent the wheel? Let's just take her advice and see what happens. And I can say that intention that I took on has created this opportunity where, to your point, Michele, I get calls and texts from people all the time just going, hey, I found out about this herbal medicine, or I found out about this meditative practice, or craniosacral therapy, or psychics, or whatever. And they're like, what do you think? Have you heard of it? And I love that. I really love it. So I think for anyone out there listening, really take Michele's invitation, have some courage around that invitation, and step towards it, because there's a whole world of people that will be attracted into your life, that will reach out a hand to let you know that you're definitely not alone.
Fantastic.
So you have monthly gatherings. I can't talk today, guys. I'm really sorry. The pictures are there. It's just the words are having a hard time coming out. Tell us about the conversations in the upper room, because just that I'm curious about, that I want to go hang out in the upper room.
Thank you, Kelly, for that invitation. My friend Nina Roberts-Salveson and I have been co-facilitating a drop-in 2-hour monthly gathering where we all check in, whoever shows up. It's been on Zoom now for a couple of years, and we talk about exactly what we are sharing today. What is our story? What are we seeing professionally, personally? What is shifting? Where are we curious? Where are we confused? And what epiphanies and insights have come? We have had light language come through. We have had angels come through. And it's not just us. Part of the new era teaching, facilitating, is that everyone in a gathering is a teacher and a student, including those of us doing the logistics, right, and creating the space. So I have so enjoyed, and I think those attending tell us regularly, the opportunity to do that. We also gather once a month for an hour for a free drop-in on a power hour. It's geared towards women. Take a look at that. It's coming up once a month. We'll send some links. We also have an amazing 6-month master course coming up, designed for really accelerating your full potential, igniting for leaders, facilitators, visionaries, practitioners, coaches who want to be a deeper dive in community and support each other's growth and development. And there's a number of recorded workshops we have. So yes, the Center Within is my website. It's actually Center Within, not the.
I was doing that the other day. I kept putting the in. I was like, oh, I must be doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's centerwithin.com, and there's a variety of ways to get a hold of me for individual coaching, for me to come work with your organization, for you to attend our classes and workshops. And I really encourage, if this resonates with you, try a variety of teachers, try a variety of opportunities, but connect. I'm not above a glass of wine or a cup of tea either. So reach out if you're curious, and let's have a conversation about the opportunity to be able to create through Community for Higher Consciousness, which Kelly and I have been a part of for over a decade, and through the Edge magazine, right? I have all of my offerings advertised there, so please take a look at the event or center there on the Edge magazine online and in the beautiful print. And there are a number of practitioners. So see who sings to you, who resonates with you. And over time it will change. It has for all three of us, right? Some people we outgrow, some people we just follow your own organic inner wisdom. But I would love to be a part of that journey for anyone who this conversation or my offerings resonate with.
What would be a good starting point? So someone's curious and they love what they're hearing today. And they're like, wow, I'm feeling her energy. I want to engage. I want to act. Where should they start?
The starting point would be one of the drop-in conversations on the Upper Room or the Power Hour, or sign up and just have an hour-long coaching session with me. I also offer free 20 to 30-minute consultations for anyone interested in learning more. And I actually will, even if you sign up for coaching, I will have that before we start, just to be sure we're a good fit and we're on the same page. But yeah, reach out for that consultation. It's a lot of fun.
And also on your website, you collaborated with Nia Claire on activating your vessel. So maybe you're curious and you're not quite ready to engage yet. Tell us a little bit about this pre-recorded offering that you have that people could experience.
Yes, I have there's an online course platform called Teachable, and I have about 50 recorded courses. Nia Claire is here in the Twin Cities, a sweet, dear woman, just texting with her yesterday, actually this morning as well, now that I think about it, who is a gifted intuitive coach herself, and we put together a 5-segment course that we have recorded, and it's on our Teachable website. So take a look at that. And then the other person, it's Nina Roberts Salveson, Teresa Nutt, and I doing this 6-month plus 1-month bonus starting in September deep dive master course. And Teresa and I have also recorded at least a dozen courses, and some I have done myself. They're really inexpensive. And again, it's, to your point, Kelly, a great place to start to get a feel for the kind of work I do.
Well, and because you create that safe space, I really want to encourage people to take that opportunity for that half-hour exploratory call or reach out, because within just a couple of moments, I can see people breathing and going, I've never told anybody this, or I'm really curious about this and I felt silly asking, and you just create it. And I'm not trying to be a broken record, everybody, but this energy, this safe space where you're just like, okay, I'm ready to be vulnerable. And I think a lot of people right now are ready for that. And what we want to do with this show and what we want to do with the Edge magazine and Brian with No Shift Own is create trusted space for people to be curious. I don't want people just to go on Google and Google X, Y, and Z, and whoever paid the most for keywords or whoever has the most traffic or the biggest ad budget is who captures these people that are curious. And I don't know, I'm rambling again. Gosh, today's a rambling day. I apologize. But I just creating this ability for people to be curious, and if they want to move forward, they can. And sometimes it's taking a left or taking a right or going 2 steps forward and 5 steps back, and sometimes you break down and you jump in a mud puddle and then you jump back up. But I just see Michele would be the type of person that's like, there's a shower over there and here's a white robe and some slippers. I made a cup of tea. We're going to go sit over there and you just let me know when you're ready.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yes, beautifully said. You just created a very safe space, Kelly.
Sometimes my rambling can move on to loveliness.
It was a great story. I was hooked. I was like, whoa, where are we going next? Oh, here. Okay, there we go.
Here we go. Okay, we've also touched on the Community for Higher Consciousness. Now, I'm a part of it now, but Michele was a part of the real founders with Maureen Higgins. Oh, gosh, I'm going to forget the 2 other names, and Barb Stahl. Tell us a little bit how that started.
Yeah, well, it started with the 2012, December 21st, 2012 coming, and we wanted to offer something, an opportunity to, I guess been doing this for a while, community capacity building. And there were 3 men and 3 women got together, and we spent an entire day at the Calhoun Beach Club in their beautiful ballroom offering this collective experience that we all participated in, ushering in sort of, it's a Mayan calendar, ending of the Mayan calendar and the beginning of a new era. In some traditions, it's a 26,000 year era, ending and a new one beginning. And that day sort of symbolized that process. So I feel very lucky to have spent many years playing and working in the Community for Higher Consciousness and supporting each other in our own growth and development, both personally and professionally.
Oh, Michele. I love this. Okay, you guys. That's it. Like, the show's done. That just like wrapped up so fast, you guys. Okay, centerwithin.com. Michele Ray. You guys be curious. Seriously. There's just so much. There's so much out there and so many resources, and we're so blessed to be your tour guides, right? And let us know what we can be doing to better serve you. Michele, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Kelly and Brian, for this ongoing opportunity to serve our community.
Oh, our pleasure. Okay, you guys, that's it. AM 950, the Being Curious with Kelly and Brian and Kelly, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Thanks for being here. We're grateful. Mahalo.